All right, you ready to go?
Yep, ready.
All right, let's do this. So, welcome. Hello. Good morning. Welcome to the ARC show, I guess. So you're 223 ARC?
Yep, 223.
Mm-hmm.
Should I talk about myself a little bit?
Yeah. What kind of stuff do you like doing? What do you do on like a daily, weekly basis? And what are you trying to achieve?
So I started playing a long time ago, on and off, and I used to play Aaron a lot. I got up to 217, but then I quit when Flames came out, and I also quit because I messed up really bad on DMT. I spent all my money. I got everything to Legendary, but then I couldn't re-clear anything after that. So,
Yeah, no money to reroll.
yeah, I couldn't reroll. I was completely useless. Couldn't do Hellux, couldn't do CRA at all. It's painful. But now I'm back. I terror burned this character, so it helped a lot with the nodes. My goals are 6k Legion. I want to get Absolab on my arc and kind of sit on Absolab for a while. Another goal is probably setting up a second bossing character that I really like, so that way I have a fallback plan in case my arc gets DMT'd again.
Is this your current terror burn or from the one previous to this?
This is my current terror burn.
Okay, yeah.
And then my other goal is Lomian and Hellux and CRA Vellum.
Sure. So you're like aiming to get into like the early 240s basically, like, or like mid to late 230s at least, and kind of clear all the content up until that point and feel comfortable doing that stuff. Do you want to do it all solo? Or are you looking for like parties? Do you have friends you're playing with? Are you in a guild that will do those things?
I'm looking to duo them, preferably, with my cousin. We just cleared CRA, the first 3 bosses, on Saturday, so
okay,
pretty excited.
All right. Okay, cool. And what have you cleared up to now?
Like solo?
Yeah, solo or party, yeah.
In terms of like the hard bosses, I guess I do normal Golux. I'm struggling on hard Golux. Like, I need advice as an arc. And I could do like normal Magnus, Chaos Horntail, Chaos Pink Bean, things like that. I tried soloing CRA and I failed miserably, but it helps a lot to duo it. So.
Right. And, so have you like do it with your cousin?
Yeah. We did CRA the first 3 bosses.
Right. And he's like gone on to be able to solo them now, but you haven't yet.
No, he is 210 and he's like maybe 5 days behind me.
But okay, so he cleared it the first time, like with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. And you're planning to, so you're like some levels ahead, but 5 days is a lot when you're only playing 10 days, but when you're playing 3 months, then 5 days is nothing, right? So it's gonna like even out the further you go. And are you pretty competitive in that way, or just like more casual approach? Just trying to one step at a time.
I don't really need to like outperform or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just taking it slow right now. I want to park my arc once I get like Absolab gear and develop my other things.
Yeah, so be able to do Hellux and then maybe duo Hellux if necessary, and then duo Lotus Damien, something like that, and then look around and see what else is out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just as a reference point, so we don't go like super overfunding on your ass, right? And how familiar are you with the resources that I have on the channel? Have you seen like other sessions like these, or?
Yeah, I've watched quite a bit of your sessions, and there was one guy who was recently like around my level as arc, so that one really helped a lot.
Do you remember what you picked up from that?
Yeah, I did. Like what's important for the V Matrix and things like that.
Yeah, maybe like the hyper skills or for your priorities for your hyper stats and for your Legion and that kind of stuff. Is that what kind of or did you already have that you felt like you wanted to build that Legion out to 6k? Is that mainly because of like the sessions of the importance of it, or?
No, I just like leveling characters a lot and experiencing them at like 100, and also like I want to scout and see what classes I like for my second bossing build.
Right, yeah. And if you're trying to look around, then building a Legion is double whammy, because you get to experience all the characters a little bit better because they're a little bit stronger already, so you don't have to deal with that baseline of being absolutely just like abject horrible in the beginning, as in at your weakest. Plus, as you're trying out more characters, you're funding all of the characters basically without needing to spend, you know, a lot of mesos in them initially. So that's I think that sounds like a good, like, cohesive plan, not like totally out of whack, at least in that regard. So that's already a good start.
Cool.
Have you looked around at any characters that you might be interested in, or is it just like at this point you're just kind of still browsing?
I kind of want a character that's like really easy to level, like a Lumi, because arc grinding is very, you know, hands-on. You need to like remember like your cooldowns and stuff, and like look down at your keyboard.
It's not the word. Like, yeah, I do get that. I had that a lot in the beginning. That's why I kind of didn't like arc in the beginning, because there was so much cooldown management and all of the different skills. And so what I ended up doing was basically I kept moving my keys around the keyboard until I felt like my hand was in a position where I could do it for like hours without having any strain, right? And, you know, it depends on your keyboard, depends on your hands, depends on how you're, you know, where you're resting and everything. But finding a position that was comfortable for my hands, like pretty close to like if I just hold my hands in the regular, like not making a fist and not like stretching out my finger, but just like a standard position, I guess. And I kind of like placing my hand on the keyboard like that, and then just centering the keys around that. That really made it much easier for my muscle memory to start kicking in on the cooldowns. And now I don't really look at the cooldowns at all. What my fingers will do now is like they'll tap the key, hoping that it'll go off, and if it doesn't go off, you immediately switch to like another situation that you could also be doing. So you end up kind of just like limit testing, or, you know, you kind of just like trial and error kind of your movement stuff, unless it's really important. But then, you know, you kind of get better at just seeing in the corner of your eye if a skill like lights up a little bit, right, when it comes off cooldown. And in KMS right now, they're also working on skill alarms. They will pop up way more visibly if a skill comes off cooldown, and you'll see like a bigger message pop up, and you can select a few skills that it'll do that for. So, and you can actually also do it for the skills that are in, like say you're in Flora mode, you can set the alarm for the skill in Spectre mode, and it'll still flash so that you know if you switch over, the skill will be immediately available. So that's also pretty useful. But of course that's 6 months out. So, but for the other part, like the practicing around and moving your skills around until you find, it definitely gets a lot better when the muscle memory kicks in. But it stays hands-on. That's definitely true. It's not like the most intense character in the game. There's probably at least like 5 or 6 that are way more intense. But it is up there for sure, for sure. So you're looking for a little bit more of a calm, a little bit more straightforward, simple, not like one like fall asleep on your keyboard and you would level when you wake up kind of thing, but a bit more in that direction.
Yeah, I think all the other times I like stopped playing like characters, it was always because their training got too like brain
stressful.
So,
yeah.
So I think Arc was actually the perfect class for me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was too numbing as in like too simple?
Yeah, too simple.
Mm-hmm. Weren't you playing Aran before? Was that? Did that?
Yeah, I was playing Aran before.
But you quit that one more because of the upgrading fiasco thing.
Yeah, I quit that one because of the fiasco.
Was
but
that also on
really
this account, or?
It is on this account.
Okay.
But, I didn't really play Aran optimally. Let's just say that.
Okay. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smash keyboard. Yeah. I mean, you can get pretty far by just like smashing, just a key bashing, right? But there's definitely some optimization that you could do to make it a whole lot better. I mean, it sounds like it already has quite a lot invested into it, so that could become a side bossing character, but not necessarily one you would want to level so far, right? Because I guess the training is also not on the same level as something that you will be trying to main, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought about it. I forgot to mention, they changed Aran since I last played her, and I can't use Adrenaline Rush for some reason. I'm not sure if I should buy like an SP reset or something to fix it. Or...
Well, there's another skill that you need to tap to activate it. So like it'll, usually in the past it was like the screen is flashing and then it'll just go. And now when the screen is flashing, you have to tap another key within a time frame to actually activate it. So you get more flexibility on when to use it. So you should go through your skills and look for that key and put it somewhere useful. And I think right now in Korea they even extended the window of how long you have to press it. Plus, if you don't activate it, your combo doesn't go down as low. So it's even more forgiving for that system as well.
Okay. Yeah. I think I tried to hotkey Adrenaline Rush, but it might not be the one that I'm looking for because it won't let me hotkey it.
I haven't played on my arc, but on my Aaron, but it might be a different key. Do we have any Aarons in the chat? Do you guys know the exact name of what it is? But yeah, I know that you have an extra key to press to activate it now. Yeah, but well, I'm usually in the business of like salvaging, so looking at around what are the things that you definitely want to do, what is the things that you definitely don't want to do, and then hopefully that'll create fun for you, right? And then hopefully try to keep it as fun as possible, by also allowing you to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And at the same time, because we have no trade, I always look at it through the lens of like what is salvageable within your account, what is salvageable within your character. And like a character that's already been invested in so much on the run, and the upcoming changes to Kishin, right? Because you didn't mention at all like having a Kana farmer or something like that, right? I don't think you're in any way set up to need that at this point. But Kishin being nerfed in 6 months and like setting your account up for possible long-term gains, is this something that you've considered or no?
Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
So when it comes to like playing very long term, and up to 240, I think it's definitely not like a huge problem. But if you're planning on going to 250 or 260 or above, you do want to in some way kind of set up your account to be able to fund itself, right? To be able to generate the income and the increasing expenses of going into a high level areas, and how much your gear needs to be upgraded. So I wonder if you've given that thought on how you plan to do that, because I can give you more information on like what the main ways are to do that, but one of the main ways that people do is having a Kana farmer on their account, right? That generates a lot of their income. But because of the upcoming changes to Kana, that might not be a viable path anymore past a certain point. So I don't know if you've given that any thought, or if that's something for later.
Yeah, I definitely do want to hit like those higher levels as a long-term goal. I just didn't list them because I didn't know. But a big reason why I quit as well was also because I felt like I had to make a Kana farmer, and I was just farming in like MP3 or whatever it was for so long, and it felt so bad. So
and bye-bye station,
I don't want to do that again.
Did you ever go? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I never did either. I never made a farmer, but I just throw man hours at it. That's how I overcome it, and then I just don't train so that I can't out level my expense patterns. It's a very good strategy. But at this point, if I would train, like training also just makes you a lot of money, just playing the game and just leveling also makes you a lot of money. But you have to set up for that, right? So the main way that you kind of counter that is so maybe not for the arc, if you're mainly trying to just gain levels on there just for the purpose of bossing, just to kind of get more familiar with the content and see if you like it. If you want to push past that point, the main thing is like where your funding comes from. Like, in the beginning it's pretty straightforward. Like, you just level everything up a little bit. You just go evenly. You try to get the CRA gear, then you push a little bit harder there. Work on a Star Force. Then you work on weapon secondary and emblem potential, right? Those are very important. And then it's mainly just nodes and arcane power. And it's basically at that point, depending on what the purpose is of your character and kind of your account, what comes after working on wait, what did I just mention? I just totally fucking blanked. But right after that is like, what do you work on is either you go more into your accessories, and you try to build out the amount of equips you have. You completely build out the boss accessory set and everything, right? And then you try to get like main stat on all of that, just so you can progress faster in killing all the monsters. And if you're progressing quickly, you won't get as much from the arcane power and from the nodes, so you have to kind of compensate with more damage in your equips. But then you can keep leveling, you can get into the bosses faster because you just have more raw output and damage. And then as your arcane power and your nodes catch up over time, if you keep doing the dailies and keep participating in events and such, then as it goes on, the bosses that you can then barely do become much easier over time without spending more money on the character, essentially. But if you're trying to plan for further and you don't want to have a Kana farmer on the account, one of the main things you want to do is after you basically set with the WSE and you got your CRA gear and you're like not yet at Abzo, that's like in the near future. you can set yourself up to, at that point, basically start working on your accessories and pushing those up all the way to legendary and starting getting meso-obtain and drop rate. Because at that time, the monsters are still pretty weak. Your arcane power and your nodes are going to take, account of most of the damage that you need to be able to do, together with your hyperstats and your legion as that's growing, and your weapon secondary and emblem potential. And then your accessories are actually going to completely take the role of magnifying your impact in the same time that you're usually training. So you get way more money while you're training. And that'll make it so that whenever an event comes around, you can start planning, you can start doing the right bosses, getting the right backups, and then you can go hard on upgrading whenever an event comes around, and then you can start saving up again. And you basically make like the upgrades in bigger waves, and you'll kind of learn from the process from the first character to see like, okay, where do I need to push, where do I not need to push? Plus you'll be able to use the resources on the channel to kind of have an idea on what is the main area to focus on and what is an area that, is not really necessary to go super hard on at this time.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not in such a huge rush. Like a lot of the times I just do my dailies right now, and then I just go straight to Legion leveling. And then,
yeah, because the Legion's at 4K, right?
Yeah, 4K right now.
So you're starting to notice some difference there, I guess, right? New characters are probably quite a bit stronger.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to level up other characters.
Okay, so yeah, I think we've got a good idea of what you want to do and where you want to go. Are there any systems in the game that you feel that you could use some extra explanation on, some extra feedback on, some questions that you already have written down maybe on where they fit, into the progression, or how to how to go about doing them in a way that is not does not weigh you down and can still make it so that you can have fun playing, I guess.
Yeah, I have like a ton of questions written down. If we want to just go through this.
Yeah, sure.
So
lightning round, go.
Yeah, I think you said that arcs have 2 invincibility frames.
Yeah.
I only know of the 10-second one. But
yeah,
really big one. What other ones we have?
There's another one that you're probably just tapping. It's called Creeping Terror and Third Job. That if you just tap it, it's like a full map clear. So you use it as that if you're mobbing. But if you're bossing, you just hold it down, and you go like underground, right? And you can move underground, and you're immune during that for up to 5 seconds. You take a little bit of HP damage as you stay in it, but it's basically negligible compared to not dying from attacks. That one has a pretty short cooldown and has a hyper skill associated that you would want to level up to reduce the cooldown even further, right? So that basically gives you like a 46, 47 second iframe from anywhere from like 0.5 to 5 seconds the longer you hold it down. So very useful.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that one would be really useful.
Yeah.
Especially for like the bosses I'm currently struggling on.
And the other thing
I'm really struggling on. Go ahead.
The other thing we have is a teleport. So if you have your regular Scarlet dash, right? If you jump and use that, it counts as a teleport. So you can also use that to get through some things. It's like kind of like a pseudo iframe. So if you have, I don't know if you've seen videos of like Lotus and Lucid. Lotus has that laser that's spinning around. If you just jump and dash, you can just go through that one as well. You don't even have to use your actual iframe for that one. So that gives you another bit of somewhat invincibility as well.
I didn't. That's cool. That should help with.
Yeah, if you use it on the ground, so if you use it while you're on the ground, it counts as a rush skill, right? So you're just like sliding, and if you use it while you're in the air, it counts as a teleport.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yep. Good, that's an important distinction, because you will try to use it like, oh, Scardor said to use this skill, and you're gonna die. you need to jump first if you want to get the teleport effect. Yeah.
Okay. Other question about Arc is, I know you get like that final damage increase for like weeding after using your Vivid Nightmare. How often are you doing it on like progression fights? Are you trying to do it as much as possible?
So you're talking about the oh god, what's it called? Like the skill that allows you to weave more easily?
Yeah. So like whenever you do your main attack in Spectre form, you just weave in the other like 4 spells, I think.
Yeah, you just the endless dream, and then you weave the other ones in. Honestly, it comes down to the level of comfort you have with the character, and it comes to with the level of risk in case it fails. So there are some bosses where, like in Vellum or something, if he could be popping up or if there's like stun rocks going around and stuff, I typically like don't use it because you could accidentally dash and then dash into one and then die because of it. So you have to kind of like look for the risk. The higher your attack speed, the harder it is to pull off as well. What I found is the easiest stack to Combat Frenzy, right? That's what it's called. The easiest stack to build is if you're in basic and you use your in Flora, you use your basic charge and then immediately like tap in the abyssal charge, because that one doesn't move you at all. So I feel like it has a higher chance of actually activating the Combat Frenzy. And typically that's what you want to do when you're setting up your burst, right? You want to use the spell amplification in Flora, and then you want to use your 4 buffs again to double their effects and to reset their durations. So in that you can start building up the Battle Frenzy if you want, right? So you pop the what is it, like the 60-second extra 10% damage, that one, right? And then the other one, because they're basically the same effect, same duration, so you just pop those together. The amplifier, and then if you use the basic and you can weave in the abyssal and that works, then immediately after that you can use basic and weave in the scarlet, basic and weave in the gust. That also makes your character not move. And in some situations you want to move and you want to like panic tap the key, and if you have max battle frenzy it can actually make you animation cancel instead of moving you and then actually kill you. So it comes down to just practice and getting used to like, oh, now I have to wait a little bit longer in between the skills to, you know, actually get the move out of it. And it still goes wrong from time to time, because you know, I'm not very good, plus I'm on 200 ping, so it can sometimes like, oh, I wanted to animation cancel, but my character is like dashing across the map, and sometimes it's like, oh, I wanted to dash and now my character animation canceled. Well, fuck me. Yeah, I'm not really good enough to be like some kind of expert on Arc, but as you get better with the character, these mistakes are also like not the end of the world. You're like, oh, okay, that was kind of silly, and then you just play a little bit more safe for the rest of the fight. You know, there's very few boss fights that really just only have one life, and if you fuck up, it's over. And plus you have practice modes and everything, right? So the game is pretty forgiving in that sense that you can just try again. But I found that was probably the safest way to build up the stacks. If I feel pretty confident in a fight, I use it more and more now, because I know it does increase damage. I think in KMS they even weave in the unstoppable impulse. I did that a few I don't know if that actually increases my damage. Maybe for me it might, because I have that one double boosted and I don't have the Scarlet Drive double boosted on the boost nodes. So maybe it would be better for me to weave that in. I'm not sure. I'm just spamming the buttons and making sure I don't die, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done like super
cool.
in-depth BAs and like, oh, this is a 3.8% final damage increase or something. I don't have those numbers. It does make it look a whole lot cooler though. It feels like you're doing a whole lot more.
Yeah. I totally forgot that you...
Yeah, it's easier to build in Flora than in Spectra typically. Yeah.
Gotcha. I honestly didn't know that it stacked in Flora, so I'll totally do that, because before I was literally just using my things for the buffs.
Yeah, so for Flora you have to use the basic drive as the main attack, and then in Spectra you have to use the Endless Dream as the thing to weave into.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. And then you kind of went over it, but can you use Charge Spell Amplifier like preemptively, or do you have to get the buffs and then use it?
Yeah, I think if you already have the buffs on, at least that's how I understand it to work. If you already have the buffs on and then you use the amplifier, then the old effects just continue, but they don't double up. It only doubles up on the new effects that activate once the amplifier was also activated. And then you also give the effect to your teammates, right? That's also the other big part, is we support a lot that way. So you give the single effect to the teammates, and you give yourself the double effects, plus you refresh the duration. And because right after that you're going to be in Spectra for a while, so you want to refresh them regardless, so that you can stay in Spectra with Infinity Spell as long as possible, with the lasting buffs going.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
When you're bossing, right? And then when you're mobbing, you don't really use it that much, because it really, what is it, add 20 damage and 20 attack, and then that's it. If that's useful, then you weave it in, but typically in mobbing you don't really use it very much.
Yeah. Okay, and then next one is bossing advice. So right now I am doing hard Golux and failing every single time. Should I do normal Golux and fall back to that? Because I don't get really like good practice when I do normal.
Yeah.
I don't know what you would suggest.
I guess normal is super easy and hard is just not doable.
Yeah, I mean, hard I'm slowly improving at. Like, I got it down to like
Mm-hmm.
25% in the first phase yesterday.
And you got an
But
extra iframe now to
yeah, that's
work.
true.
Yeah.
That'll help.
I remember the
Um,
dash is the dash to get to the other side of him can be very strong. Yeah, the one thing is we don't really have a big old summon to put on the bottom, right, to stop the potatoes. You can use your bind for a little bit, but that's about it. But I guess phase 2 and 3 are pretty short, right? Comparative to 1. Like the
Yeah.
chin phase is definitely way longer than the other ones.
mhm.
So run me through like visually, run me through like a hard Lux run. Like what are you looking out for? When do you tend to use your skills? What do you do?
Well, I definitely look at his eyes constantly,
Mm-hmm.
but I tried to predict it because I'm really bad at reacting to it, to like his breath attack. So I usually just like use my dashing abilities to try to dodge,
Mm-hmm.
or like double jump preemptively, and then that gets me killed sometimes.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm trying to maintain the 3 buffs, and then I'm really bad at stacking infinity with my my other abyssal recall like extra bonus thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times when I die, I get tilted, and then I keep on dying over and over to the same thing.
Right.
So that's
Do you
really
ever?
bad.
So is chain dying a thing? Because the resistance link skill will help you with that, right?
Yeah, chain dying is a really bad thing for me,
Yeah.
especially in Golix.
Mm-hmm.
Happens in Bricks my run a lot of the times.
So there's 2 major things I would already say. Like one is like resistance link. Try to invest into that. That will just change runs because you don't have practice runs. You only have 1 entry a day, so that's brutal, right? So you want to make sure that the runs that you're in there are better. So you want to have buff freezers. You want to have possibly guild skills. Whatever access you have, just to mow that guy down. You want to have the resistance link to make sure that you to make sure that if you die, you don't like chain die to dumb shit, because that happens a lot in Golix, because his attacks are just all over the place. And the other thing is that the other thing that you can do is if you go in and you just like blow your load as arcs do, you prep pretty much everything outside. You just walk in, you put down the beast, you abyssal, you like nuke it. You can also just go back to the left to the portal and just exit and just wait for your cooldowns to come back. That's the thing you can do.
That's
That's
a good way of cheesing it.
Yeah, if you just want to total cheese it because you want to clear and you're not like trying to shoot the bear and you're just trying to like get it over with. You just wait outside for the cooldowns to come back. You just pop everything again. You just go back in, and you just go again. Some people do that just to get it over with. The main thing will be, definitely using the beast whenever you have it. Right, that's huge. Insane amounts of damage. You probably cannot use. God, all of our skill names are so edgy. The key down hyper skill, right? What is it? Insatiable hunger? No, I don't know.
Endless agony.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Unrelenting, abyssal suffering, something like that. I think you mainly just only use that one in phase 2, right? If you're standing all the way on the left side of the platform, the hand doesn't come up all the way, but it will reach all the way there. Yeah, like someone in chat said, like the balls floating around will definitely hit the ones directly underneath you, so that makes at least only one side be able to hit the middle, but then you still slowly build the stacks, right? And once you have a stack, you cannot go through the portal to leave anymore.
Okay.
So that's that's why I say like jump in, blow your load, because that just kills everything around you, and then you'll be able to exit usually without any problems. If you do get near the door and he does want to kill you, you have your backup iframe to save yourself until the breath, because the breath reaches all the way to the door, right? Even if it's like looks like a smaller range, it does reach all the way to the side. So that's why it's more important to stay in the middle and just dash around him, a little bit behind him, right? Because the pink breath, even though it's totally facing the left, it still hits a little bit to the right. So you probably noticed that one already, a little bit here and there. Yeah.
Did they change it since I played it around? Because I don't remember it being that hard. Where
it was just the
like
hitbox
exactly
of the actual breath, yeah. Well, but this is also when they changed the entries, when they changed the HP a lot, right? Because like old Helix was a little bit easier than Hard Lux is now, so they just pushed it back in the progression, because they kind of realized like we want to keep the content in the game, but with how good the set bonus is, it's kind of ridiculous how easy and how early on you can get it, right? Because the set bonus is just better objectively than the pitch boss, and that's like orders of magnitude harder to get. So it was really hard to justify the positioning for the gear. Then readjusting the HP and, you know, adjusting the prices, the drop, but also making it rebuyable. You know, the pieces, you can rebuy them now, so you can get backups. I think that was all great changes, but like the way that they kind of fucked with the boss fight, in changing the hitboxes and the weird mechanics, and then the portal not really working ever, and then them saying that they fixed it 5 times and it's still being broken. That is like a shit show, of course. That made the whole change that I think was a reasonable change in a really... The whole experience is just bad. So, yeah.
So, would you suggest...
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Go for it.
So would you suggest that I just save everything for the superior set?
Yes.
Or should I?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't fuck with reinforced.
Okay. And for the V matrix question, I didn't show my boost nodes on accident, but I do have my 5th one, so I'm maxing out everything eventually, except for Scarlet Drive.
Yep.
But what do I do once I hit 230? Like, what skill nodes are useful for me? And what should I use my experience boosters on?
So one of the ones you don't have yet that I think is very useful, and I would for bossing, I would probably throw it in, possibly even instead of Beast, because Beast is like, it's basically like a 1, maybe if you're lucky on the timing, like a 2-time somewhat full map clear, but the bigger the maps get, the less of the map it actually clears, right? And mainly it's just a big old bossing chunk, but for mobbing it's not as impactful anymore on a 2-minute cooldown. Is the loaded dice skill, which will unlock the dice roll for you, which you can then also, so you get 2 skills basically. You get 1 skill that decides what roll of the die you want to get, so 1 through 6. 6 for EXP, so if you're just grinding and you have enough experience to kill, that's, I believe it's 20% EXP, which is brutal, really good. And then 5 is 20% damage, or it might be 15% EXP, I'm not 100% on the numbers, but it's really good. 5 is 20% damage, so they'll just help you in bossing. And then 4 is crit rate, I think 15% crit rate, if I'm not mistaken. That can help people in the beginning, you know, if you're kind of like struggling. Arc, you know, no problem there. You have 20% in your burst, you get 40% from Scarlet Drive alone, so you're golden on that. But basically 5 or 6 between mobbing and bossing. If you do need the extra damage when you're mobbing, you can, you know, in desperate situations, you can roll for the 5. But so basically with the loaded dice skill, you just tap like 5 or 6 on your keyboard, and they'll just pre-program it, and then you do roll the dice, and then you get like 2 minutes of the buff. So that combined with the Holy Symbol, and I think leveling Holy Symbol is also a very important one. Just to get more EXP is nice, but to also get more drop rate, so you can get more nodes in return, so you can level the other skills faster as well. It's going to be the combination of those 2 skills. Maybe you don't go as hard on Holy Symbol in your situation if you're planning to halt it like around or before 240, right? So in that sense, the Holy Symbol probably comparatively is a little bit less important. Also, the loaded dice skill, you don't have to level up. It gives you the same effect. It just gives a passive effect of weapon attack if you level it up, so it's not important to level, but I would incorporate it into the set. The other skills that you want to go into is probably Decent Sharp Eyes, just for the critical damage, and it'll also take some critical rate Desire off of your Link skill, so you can go into more flat damage there. And Decent Speed Infusion with a green pot together and with your Gust Drive will help you reach max attack speed, which will make both bossing and mobbing more smoother, but again makes it a little bit trickier to pull off those combos for Battle Frenzy.
Right. Okay, that's cool.
That's the main. Yeah. If you want to go, if you're gonna do the more burst heavy on bossing later, basically everything helps you. So, you know, like all of the skills, like Decent Combat Orders goes in, that helps you. Conversion Overdrive can even help you on mobbing and bossing. That's a little later priority though. But the other one you want to look into is the Goddess. The Goddess just, yeah, gives an insane amount of burst. It gets a lot better as it levels up, and it mainly comes into play if you at least have an Abza weapon, which you already have, or an Arcane weapon, because like the buff you get scales off of the base attack of your weapon. As does our passive, and as does There's a third thing that scales. Oh, and regular overdrive, like the pirate skill that gives you a bunch of extra attack. Those 3 skills, or ability and 2 skills, scale off of the base attack of your weapon, which arc, has pretty low base attack on our weapons, right? So it does scale very well off of moving into arcane, but that might be something that you're not going to be doing with the arc. I think it'll depend how the next 15 levels go in this character, whether you want to keep pushing it or whether you just keep it there where it is. I found a lot of progress and just keep going on the arc, and just everything kept getting better and better and stronger. And that was even before, so that was only with Abyssal and with Infinity Spell. The other 2 skills I didn't even have yet at that point. And then getting those 2, like getting the Beast out of nowhere as an extra skill on top of my kit that I already had, was just insane. But yeah, you need to like level up, I think, your Beast past level 10 before it out damages in a boss fight, before it out damages Creeping Terror if it's maxed buffed. Like that skill, you can just use it so many times, and also does an insane amount of damage. So yeah, as you get better and you don't need iframes as much anymore, you just tap the Creeping Terror for damage instead, and that just rakes in the damage as well. So you do have a lot of, yeah, you're just very burst heavy. So like you throw spell bullets in, you throw overdrive, conversion overdrive, you put the blessing in there, infinity spell, and then you hold down your yeah, the like chaos slime and stuff. Just chunk it.
Okay, cool. Loaded dice seems good for training. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I was thinking about pushing to 235 since I do have some reward points pooled for totems. So I was thinking about trying to push for 235 because, I mean, the moment I hit 220, I was super weak. I didn't even have 150% for the extra damage. So I was really struggling, but
for the extra damage,
maybe push for it.
For boss damage,
Arcane Power.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
150, yeah.
Final
but
damage.
now I think I do have it for Lachelin, so I can probably grind there now.
Yeah, and honestly, at this point, either buy a slot or even take out like that last boost node. Doesn't seem like for mobbing it does all that much. I'd probably just take that one out and throw the loaded dice in there just to get access to it ASAP. It's just that good.
Okay, gotcha.
As long as you're, your Endless Dream, Endless Nightmare, Impending Death, and maybe your basic, as long as those are like mainly boosted. The other ones are just like min-maxy for more situations, but you want to get the skill nodes in there hardcore. But yeah, you could also even take out the Beast at this point, because, it's a full map clear every 2 minutes, but if you're just dashing around and not placing it down in a strategic location and stuff, you can almost clear as much at the same time, so it doesn't add that much anymore. It's mostly just insanely good at bossing when they're bound. Yeah, you probably try to use it like, oh, I can use it, and then it just completely misses. The boss just kind of like teleports out or walks out of it, and you're like, okay, well.
Yeah, substituting Beast is such a good idea for training. I did not think about that, because Beast is not very useful.
No, it's free slot.
I literally could have just like cleared it myself with just a few extra abilities. It's fine.
Yep.
But, okay, so for my next question is Star Forcing. So should I look to that Sunny Sunday event for the 30% off? Like, should I look to Star Force anything? Because I was thinking about doing Pencilier, since I'm getting my permanent CRA right now. So I was thinking about transfer hammering, but I also haven't transfer hammered ever. So yeah, those are my 2 current permanent pieces so far.
Right. Okay. Is it okay if we circle back to the equips when all of the non-equip questions are done? Because I feel like most of the advice there will fall into place much more easily for you as well once the other systems are kind of completely... But so it's mainly Star Forcing and priority for... transfer hammering and priority for Star Forcing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else with Link Skills, Legion, Familiars? Maybe?
No, not really any specific questions about those. Unless you have specific advice on what Link Skills I could definitely substitute out.
So this is like the main setup. You use this mainly for mobbing, bossing? This bossing setup,
I use this one mainly for bossing, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then your ID is at 87. Yeah, we got our... And that's unbuffed, so we got our 20, bonus 20, boost nodes coming in. Do you use the hyper skill for ID at this point, or do you use the boss damage one?
I use both.
Both, okay.
That's probably bad, huh?
And the flat damage one as well?
Yes, I do.
And which one are you missing on the bottom? Do you not have the Creeping Terror cooldown in?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ideally, the depending on where you are in the game, you typically want to get the Creeping Terror one, and you want to get it instead of either the bossing or the IED one in the beginning, depending on what your character needs the most. So typically early on, you keep the IED one until your ID is built up, basically until you have like the Superior Golic set, and until your Legion block is like completely filled, right? And then you switch from the IED to the bossing one. Because, yeah, now that you know about Creeping Terror, you'll be able to put it to way better use, both for mobbing full map clear and for bossing in clutch situations, or if you don't need it, just for tapping a bunch of damage. So getting the cooldown reduction there is massive.
Gotcha, yeah.
I mean, I guess it's mainly trying to get all of the link skills up to at least level 2, right? The ones that aren't yet. That'll be pretty big. Did we talk about getting some crit rates somewhere? Oh yeah, so if you get Sharp Eyes in there, the crit rate will probably be high enough that you can get rid of Phantom Instinct, I think, right?
Yeah, probably.
Because you're at 85. Yeah, so you'll go down to 80. So basically, if you're at 70, completely unbuffed as an arc, you're fine. 20 from Scarlet, 10 from Decent Sharp Eyes. And you still have very cheap points to put into critical rate in your hyperstats possibly as well. So, well, if you take off the Phantom right now, you go down to 75, so you will need Sharp Eyes. But you could technically go even lower by going a little bit higher in crit rate. I'll probably for hyperstats put a little bit in damage, because that one's a little bit lacking here.
Gotcha.
But a little bit in crit rate will basically make it so that for your Legion board, you can take some crit pieces out there and move them just straight down into boss damage, right? But I don't know if you have two setups for one for like training and one for bossing, or do you have one for mules and one for your main more?
Yeah, I should really set up one for leveling, because that's my only setup right now.
Okay, yeah, because the further you go, the more important. I don't think you should be going into bonus EXP just yet, because as soon as you hit like 5k, you want to fill the crit rate and the critical damage even more, and then you have to take that away again. But like the IED going into like the middle pyramids, right, to either fill out the stat or the attack one a little bit more like that for now, could help the new characters a little bit. But then as you go to 5k, then you'll just throw it into critical rate and critical damage more. But your arc will start needing critical rate less and less, and then when you're playing it, you'll want to go into boss damage instead. So I guess the general setup I would do is probably try to take the middle line that you have. Wait, how much are we getting right now from your legions? 13, right? Yeah, so basically, if you were to switch out your link skill, we want to see like what other link skill could you put in that would give you a bunch of damage. Which at this point, do you have the Cadena link?
Cadena? No, I don't think I do.
If you get that one to level 2, because as an arc, you don't have your own debuffs, but you, or maybe you have one somewhere, but you don't typically have your own debuffs. But Empirical Knowledge from the Explorer mages will give you the debuff, and that will trigger the debuff part of the Cadena link. Plus, you're typically at level, higher level than the bosses that you're killing. Because in the beginning, they're actually pretty low, well, way in the beginning, they're high level, right? But then when the stage where you're in, they're actually always realistically quite lower than you until you get to Will, basically, and Will is then significantly higher again. But that basically means that you just, when you're bossing, you just always get like a flat 12% damage. So if you were to take out the Phantom Instinct and replace it with that one, when you have it, you'll get 12 damage back. The other option is moving the 13 critical rate that you have in your board and moving that into boss damage, and then you get 13% boss damage, which is also damage when you're bossing. So those are pretty equivalent changes. Whichever one you want to do there is basically the same thing. But you want to see your stats more as being interchangeable that way. So it's between link skills opportunity cost, between Legion board opportunity cost, and between hyperstats opportunity cost, right? And those are the more flexible ways of moving your stat around to try to fit the whole puzzle together of getting a good balance. And for the balance, you want to go towards the progression grid and see like what are the numbers that you're roughly aiming for when you're buffed. So that's how you can like keep track of like being where you want to be. So like for mid game, functional IED of up to 93%. You get your boost nodes coming in by then. We get our extra double lines of 20, so there's definitely still some IED to gain, but I think you have the level 1 Lumi, right? So that one's still got some leveling to do. The Empirical Knowledge got some leveling to do. Your boost nodes are not quite 40 yet. We get an extra 40 during our burst, at least an extra 20 from the Abyssal, right? Abyssal Charge even off. And you do have the Bravado and the Rin's Blessing in now, but hopefully either when you get the Spear set or when the Legion grows bigger, you can move out of those two. And it's also fine to temporarily have at least like one big chunk. You might have one line now. No, to get at least like one line on the WSE. Arc doesn't necessarily need it, but if you do hit it together with attack, that basically means that you can move a lot of the other stuff into just full damage and don't have to worry about balancing around the proper amount of IED there.
Gotcha. Yeah. I actually marked on your spreadsheet, because I made a copy of it, to not level a Cadena, because I didn't think we had a debuff. But
right, yeah,
I did not know about the interaction with the mage.
Exactly, yeah, you don't. But well, that's actually why the addition of the Explorer links at the beginning was like, but then they're like, oh, wait a minute, that gives a debuff. That doesn't. Not only does that enable the Thief link skill itself, Explorer Thief, but also the Cadena. So that, yeah. And if it was just 6%, 100% right. Then there's no real worth investing into that. There's a bunch of other things that are more useful. Yeah, right, you might even do like the Ilium or some shit, like, in case it triggers. But with the debuff from Empirical Knowledge, it actually becomes very, very good because you keep those stacks up all the time. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
I think that's the main. Yeah, my link sale is kind of my blind spot because there's so many of them now. Good thing I'm not logged into game, but let me log into game real quick and just double check. I guess we have the Angelic Buster one, right? Because we're so burst heavy, if you can pop the terms and conditions before you go, it's definitely something where it's a little bit more high skill in the sense that we already have a lot of burst setup, and it's going to get more and more as your Legion grows, and then you're adding another one onto it. Like, yes, it's better, but man, it's probably better to just get the fundamentals completely done well first, and then you can add that on once it is done. So I wouldn't call it like a super high priority now. If someone is playing like their 5th character and they're already like really experienced with bossing and all that stuff, then I would definitely say like throw it in. What are you doing? You're wasting so much potential. But if you're still discovering the character and still kind of in that situation where you have to look at your keyboard like, where the fuck are all my keys? Adding another one onto that is not a good thing, especially not terms and condition, which malfunctions at a rate that is hysterical. You just smash that key so many times. It's like, no, I don't feel like activating. Oh yeah, so Spirit of Freedom, we talked about that, right? As an ability.
Yeah, I'm definitely leveling it up. So I just got them to 100 yesterday from the event. Yeah.
So probably basically switch out Close Call with that. Close Call is nice and all, but if you think about it, 10% chance of activating. So if you have 10 lives, then on average you go from 10 to 11. Versus versus Spirit of Freedom, that whenever you die, you don't insta die again right after that. I think that just has a way higher value there.
Gotcha. Yeah, I use that one for CRA basically. So
yeah, if you know that death is not really on the fucking table, and as you go further, you'll probably just replace it with a full damage skill just to make CRA go even faster. If you're on that at the time. But there are some situations, I think in CRA, mainly with Vellum, it's still useful for a while. You don't want to like if you rage respawn and the breath is still going on, for example, or a tail spawn in the middle that you didn't even see and you respawn right into that one, you lose another life. It's just as silly, So you get to ignore the silliness basically. So there's a value to that for sure.
Gotcha.
I don't think there's any other links that we majorly missed out on, but yeah, I guess it's between Rin Blessing, Bravado, Close Call, and Phantom Instinct in the short term that you can start moving around with the other ones, but definitely level up the Light Wash. Thief's Cunning, at low level is kind of like taking up a slot for almost nothing, but if you don't really have anything else to replace it with, then fuck it, might as well use it. Even like level 1 Adele or something is probably better though, just because of the standard damage all the time. But if you're soloing, the Adele link is also really bad. Even duoing, it's not that great. It's just parties of 4 and up that the Adele is also really good. Then it's a 12%. Same as a stacked Cadena, same as a stacked Ilium. Those are the ones that you're looking for. But
gotcha,
we don't move around enough for Ilium and boss fight. You don't want to. You don't want to have the feeling like you need to move to keep your stacks. Like, you don't want that. You want the I only move to survive, not to potentially die to keep 12% damage. So that's for only a select amount of classes that really rely on that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm gonna start leveling up to my mages then as well with my Candena.
Yeah, it's just so nice. The 9 damage, 9 IED is combined is just really solid.
Yeah, I underestimated it. I was like, it's lower down on the list. I don't need it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get it. Also, how important is like the Legion for like stacking strength? Like, should I take that into account when deciding on my bossing wheel? Because
you're talking about the member bonuses?
Yeah, like so a lot of the explorer guys give like 100 strength at 250.
You're familiar with this command, right? With the Legion and the Links.
Yeah, I have a copy of that one.
Yeah, so you're talking about the red areas, basically, right?
Yeah.
The reason I have them that low is because they are more specific to certain characters, right? Oh, well, I even categorize them as specific. Nice and consistent. Because the other ones basically fund all of your characters, which will fund your Legion board better. And it feels more direct to just give strength to a strength character. But what you also have to understand, or that sounds a little bit condescending. The reason that the other characters might have more value is because of what they give, but also the space that they occupy on the board, right? And the fact that their levels are existing gives you access to putting more characters on the board. And then the combination of covering more and giving access to more stats. Like if you're at, let's say that you're at 5.5k, and you have 38 characters on the board or something, and you could put 2 more in. If those 2 characters would give strength and cover on your board, that would be great. But if they gave nothing and cover on your board, but they access a newer grid, and then you can put those pieces into critical damage instead, then those pieces are like essentially 2% critical damage pieces, right? Which would be better than the member bonus for strength, because the member bonus for strength doesn't get multiplied by your percentages, right? So that's why it doesn't scale as well. So that's why they're just further down the road, because they affect a more select group of characters, and because they don't scale as well, basically.
Gotcha.
That's why they're that far down. Of course, if you at this point, if your options are like, oh, do I get luck or do I get strength, and then the member bonus coverage is the same, well, then of course you go for strength if your main characters are going to be strength characters and you want to boost them, right?
Gotcha.
And then the further you go down, the more I tend to change my setups from either a mobbing or a bossing, or a main and a mule setup, to a intellect and a non-intellect setup. Because all of the mages, there's a lot of intellect buffs, right? You want to get all those member bonuses, all the mages, but then they're completely useless on all the other characters. Whereas the other characters tend to scale strength, dex, luck, dex, strength. Like, they tend to scale with each other's stats. So the same basis exists, right? For the critical damage, for the critical rate, etc., etc. But then once you get to the stat part to put them in your Legion board, once you get to 8k, so this is like further down the road, but there's a significant difference whether you start just throwing all the highest level characters on and they all end up being strength and dex characters, and you're on a mage. That could be a difference of like 600 intellect almost, right? Because of how many mages you end up want to have on the board. So at that point, I think the priority is more like, what type of character is it? Because the member bonuses then start acting up, because the grid coverage is going to be the same, and the base coverage of those quintessential Legion pieces, those is going to be the same. So the min-maxing part ends up on the later part of like, which members bonuses do you fill the board with, basically.
Gotcha.
And then some people go for a third build, for a Legion raid power build, right, to maximize on their coins, but hopefully that synchronizes pretty well with one of the 2 setups, so you can just use that setup and not bother too much with it. You're familiar with the raid power, right? Like how that scales and...
No.
So the rate power for your characters is depending on their level and their star force.
Oh, okay.
So it's a good sweet spot if you have characters. So I would just focus on levels, basically, all the way until you have 40 level 200s, like until it's 8k, honestly, because the levels just scale way better than spending money on your character. But once you get to 200, it's usually a good idea to look for the 1+1 star force events, where you get like 2 for the price of 1, right? All the way up to 12. That's a really good time to get them all to 12 stars very cheap, 50% off. And then aiming at least for like 120 star force on those characters. That'll add up quite a lot to your Legion raid power, and that'll make your Legion coin income soar, so that if you want to scale up to training more, to playing multiple characters, you will always have coins available at that point.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, because I don't even have enough coins right now to expand my grid. It should be one more out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's a 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I was kind of confused on, like, maybe I'm messing up, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, because then 5 and 6 are the last two. Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to have to make the tough decision of, like, do I get money while I train today, or do I get the bigger board? The priority, as well, like, theoretically, the priority should always be increasing the board, right, for the long term. But it feels bad to be like, but I want to do a totem that's expiring, and now I can't use, Legion cash. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, after this, I'm totally gonna make more presets for Legion. That sounds like a good plan. So I guess that's it for my questions outside of equipment.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So I'm trying to build, like, timestamps at the same time. Good. That gives us about 35 minutes to go over that. That's well timed of you. Thank you. So the main thing. So let's start with Transfer Hammer, right? What do you know of Transfer Hammer already?
I mean, I watched your video last night, and I've never done Transfer Hammer before, and I messed up because I did not save my Pencilier Epic gear or Epic Potential gears. So I'm really short on Epic Potential scrolls, and it's annoying. Like, look at my hat.
Yeah.
And that's all I really know. It subtracts 1 Star Force.
Yep.
It tries to give you your Epic Potential, but downgrade or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it gives you an equivalent of your potential up to possibly Epic. So if it's higher, it downgrades it. If it's lower than that, it just gives you the lower one. So the main thing to remember is that your potential gets replaced, right? So I usually talk in terms of the source item and the target item, right? The source item being the item that you transfer from, and then the target item, the item you transfer to. So your target items would be the CRA in this case, and Pencilier would be the source item. So the main question is, like, is it useful? What it comes down to is, will it save you money, right? That's the baseline. In what ways can you save money? You cannot save money in terms of flames, right? Because the flame does not transfer over. The flame of the target item stays saved. That means it can be a benefit if you get flames and you have the items already, then you can already pre-flame it, even if you're going to be transferring later, so because there's no loss there. That's a positive. The downside, of course, is if your source item has a great flame, that's going to get lost. But that's just part of the deal. The things that do get replaced over, the other two ways of upgrading is Star Forcing, but then -1, like you've already said, and then potential with the qualifier there. That the highest possible it can transfer with is Epic. That doesn't mean it will always be Epic. If it wasn't rare, it'll go to rare. But if you have a rare item and the target item is legendary, it'll go down to rare. So that also means that some things you can prep, like the flame, because it doesn't get replaced, but other things you don't want to prep, like the Star Force and the potential, because that will get replaced. So if you have a potential on the target item that you really want to keep, sometimes it's better to Star Force on the item itself, because at these numbers, it will save money, but not that much, right? The main way that you save money is not having the safeguard. Safeguarding adds a whole lot of cost. So that's why you would use disposable things like Pencilier in this state, because then you can just Star Force up, you don't have to safeguard at all, and then once you transfer it over, you get the hard part done, right? The Star Forcing without the risk of booming, all that stuff. And then the flame also gets kept, which is great because the target item has flame advantage. The source item does not, so you wouldn't even want it to transfer over, because that would, in 99% of cases, be worse. Unless it's a boss drop, exceptions there. But then the potential would get overwritten. Now, that would already probably make you hesitant to do the top, although, it is epic. It has 6% strength, which in your stage of the game is, more considerably big than the rest. But the thing I would say is I would just look at how necessary is this upgrade. So I would look at the current temporary gear that you have and look at the state of that stuff. So that's staying until April 6th, right? Which gives you more than 2 months of mileage out of this stuff. And since it is epic, since it is already 12-star, and since, you could work on the flames a little bit, that gives you a lot of room to just completely neglect the other stuff and to hard focus on getting the other pieces on your account ranked up first and get way more mileage out of these pieces. A lot of times people will try to immediately move into their real CRA gear out of like fear of the stuff disappearing. For some people, you know, they tend to play during the events, then they come back 6 months later, they come back to a naked character, they can't play anything. Yeah, you want to avoid that. But it seems like you're going to be playing regularly, right? And you're going to be building on the current stuff that you already have. So what is one of the main ways that I said that, you know, you want to save money is not having a safeguard. What is another way to not have the safeguard is by getting backups for CRA. How you can get backups for CRA? By every week clearing the boss and getting the pieces, right? And since you have time, since you have like 2 months of progress that you can definitely make until these pieces disappear, in that 2 months you have like that's like 8 to 9 clears of these bosses, right? That's a whole bunch of backups. So that'll get you to the point where you can do what you wanted to do with the Pencilier, not have to safeguard and transfer, but then you can do it on the CRA itself by that time. Plus, you don't have to transfer, so you don't lose that 1 extra star. So you could just do it on the pieces itself. So for the CRA in your situation, I wouldn't worry about Pencilier. I wouldn't consider that option. But hopefully that kind of helps you with like the mindset of like, when do you want to use it and when would it make sense? So if we translate that to Absolab now, for some pieces for Absolab, and it's higher level pieces, so it's safeguarding is more expensive. But for Absolab, you're not going to get all of those backups like for CRA, right? It's way harder to get. You probably want to keep the extra weekly pieces that you could possibly get backups with to transfer to other characters that you might want to level in the future, right? So for that one, it's way more of an idea of being like, oh, I want to gather level 150 pieces, Starforce them up during a 30% off, for example, without having to safeguard, so that they're ready once I get into the Absolab gear. Now, at this point, that's still a little bit early. You can start gathering some pieces, but even the coming 30% off is going to be way too early to dedicate that money and to just sink it into equips that are just going to sit in your account for a month plus, right? So we're going to look for other places that we can invest that money in the meantime to get mileage out of it, get a return on investment, so that you can be really ready to do those harder bosses and, you know, get to do Hardlux faster, get to move to Helix hopefully pretty soon. And then that'll make it so that you can, once the time comes where, okay, now I have to work on the CRA, you keep an eye on the event calendar, you keep an eye on the sunny Sundays, and then you kind of start planning out like, oh, like in March, you know, like mid-March, oh, there's an event there, that's the one I go hard. Now I have enough backups, now I'll have more money to spend. Excuse me. And now I can make sure that the pieces are ready by the time April comes around. I just have to do the finishing touches, just get a nice flame on them, and then it'll be a big upgrade too, because they'll have the same potential, but they'll have better flames and better Star Force, and then it'll be an upgrade when I switch, instead of being a, you know, staying roughly equal, but spending a lot of money to do so, when I still have more than 2 months on the pieces. Like, you kind of, you know, you're squandering potential there, right?
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Yeah. So, does that adequately explain Transfer Hammer, the power, the, you know, the upsides, the downsides, and like kind of the ordering for Star Forcing slightly as well? Or maybe you have to touch on that a little bit. But
yeah, it does. It clears it up. I totally thought that you saved Pencilier because it saved you money, but I guess not if you.
Yeah, so the main situation you would do that is like new people who saved like, you know, they save like 400 bill because they want to get the character to 275 faster than anyone else, right? They see a new class coming in KMS, they're like, I'm gonna main it. They start saving, they save for 6 months, they have unironically like 500-600 bill, right? And then on the first or on the 5th day, right, where they can do CRA, they immediately get Pencilier to 22, transfer it in, because that's the one that they can scale up on, right? And then they transfer that into 21 CRA, and they immediately keep going because they want to get 21 CRA as soon as possible. They don't have backup, so they can't risk, but they want to just brute force it because they have the money and they saved up the money for that very purpose. So in those situations, you would do it. Right? But in your situation, because the gear just lasts so much longer, it gives you the breathing room to not have to worry about it. And then once you can worry about it, you'll have the backups, so you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Okay, so I definitely messed up by potential scrolling my top and flaming them a little bit as well.
Well, so that is value that is now a little bit stuck on them, but it's not that bad. Like, it's going to come into play eventually, right? Because we're going to keep the piece, because even if you did blow it up, it turns into a trace. You make a replacement, and all of the stats of the trace get replaced again, replace the stats on the new thing that you made. So it'll keep epic, it'll keep 6%, it'll keep the current flame, and it'll just go back down to 12 stars, and you just go back from 12 stars. So that value gets stayed. The only thing that could possibly happen is if you remake another one with the pieces, and it comes with like an amazing flame, for example. Because then you might want to say, okay, I'm going to start for this other one instead, because getting back up to 12 stars is peanuts at this point. It's very cheap. But this flame, if it's worth like $1 billion or something, right? That's worth way more than the 6% strength epic potential on this other guy. So I'm just going to leave the trace in my inventory, and I'm just going to Star Force the new one that I made as a backup. And that's when it comes into play, like knowing knowing flame scores, right? And how you evaluate the value of flames. Have you gotten into that a little bit?
Yeah, I watched your flames video last night as well. So,
so like flame scores make sense, and how you would go about kind of evaluating what's good and what's not.
Yeah, like you just slap the green numbers into the calculator, and you look at your progression grid, and then
basically, yeah. And as you progress, you'll get a better eye for it, and as you want to min-max more in the end game, you'll have more sophisticated calculators that are even more accurate, and then you can really, get into the nitty-gritty of it. But for the baseline, yeah, basically where you're at, that's if you start there, you'll be sure that you're not like comparing apples and oranges and stuff. Like flame advantage and the levels of the equips and everything, that made sense too?
It did make sense, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess when it comes to flames, so based on that, if it comes to flames, what would you say are your biggest priorities now to flame? If you got like a backup flame.
I honestly sometimes just try to flame like my badge, but even then you can't even use it, so
yeah, no, that's
a
no-go.
Using, I'm struggling to find what I should be flaming, because some of my gear has like 5% all stats, and then I was like,
and early on that's really good. Yeah, like your weapon is a 16-5 and then also has weapon attack. It's like this early on, like that's really good, even if the weapon attack is, what is that, a tier 2 or 3? Like it's a pretty low tier, but I mean it doesn't go very high on Abzo anyway. I think like a max tier is only like, does it even get 70? I don't think it even gets that much. It gets like 60 or something, right? If you can exchange that with 60 strength at 5% all stat, that's probably fine at this point. No, because the priority goes flame advantage first, and then no flame advantage, right? And it goes from high level equip to lower level equip. So if you keep that in mind, what is the piece? So just in your mind, like what is the highest level equip that you have that has flame advantage, and what would be the highest priority always for flaming?
I think that's my CRA gear, right?
What is even higher level? Well, not based on your the current flames that you have, but what would be the highest level equip that would be the highest priority for flame always, in general? The first one you look at.
Weapon.
Yes, your weapon. It's highest level, plus it can get weapon attack flames like out the ass, right? By far, weapon is always the first thing you look at. Now this one is pretty decent, so we're going to look at comparatively, we're going to look at your other pieces. If the other ones, the flame scores are like way beyond the weapon might actually be the priority. But if you only look at the weapon, we don't know if it needs to be replaced or not, right? And on the other hand, it's also a temporary weapon. It's the fake version, so we're typically not going to push as hard because of the fact that it's going to get replaced. We're going to push on other pieces a little bit harder. So what are the pieces that we can push harder on typically? Next would be other Absolab pieces, right? If you have them. And then right after that, like you said, would be the CRA pieces. But for that, we're also using temporary stuff, so we can push maybe a little bit on some pieces. Like you probably can use a few flames on your pants, right? Because we're going to use it for 2 more months, and the flame score right now is...
Yeah, really bad.
0. It's 0, right? Like intellect nothing, luck nothing, HP nothing, defense nothing. It's a 0. So the chance for an upgrade here is, well, not 100%, because there was other zeros out there, but it's very, very high. The average return rate, the average bang for your buck for a flame used on your pants now is insane compared to everything else. And there's only one other item that comes really close, and it's in the same page here, and that's the cup, right? It's level 140, it's only a little bit lower. It's also flame advantage, and the value here is 3.6, right? Or maybe it's a 1.8, so it's almost a 4. But, right, it's just 36 dex. No strength, no all stat, no weapon attack. Also very high value for flames there. The next one on the list would be your hat, right? Because that's a 12 strength with 20 dex, so that's like a 14, 13, 15 kind of value. So that's also really low. Comparative, right? And we're basically just comparing the number to the progression grid, like you said, right? Like, where's the biggest difference between the current value? But again, we're going to aim on the low end with this one, right? So if we look at the top, for example, the top is like, what is it, 5 all stats, so 42 and a half, 4. So this is like close to 60 or like over 60. That's probably already a little bit higher than we would quit at, right? Because you know, typically CRA at this point, you know, it's fine to go like 70, 75, maybe even towards 80. But for the temporary stuff, you know, if you had like mid 50s, like towards 60, that's fine. That's fine. Maybe even like just anything over 50, honestly, at this point, I would keep on these pieces. The cup, you can go a little bit higher because that's just going to stay with you. And if you hit an okay cup and you don't want to flame over it, it's very easy to get another cup from Pink Bean, right? And you just flame the other one on the side. And then you just switch if it's better, and you hold the other one if it's worse. And then you just flame that one, right? So you can always have like something to flame there, at least with the cups. If you kind of run out, you don't have the Abso pieces yet. But remember, if you have an Abso piece, you can pre-flame it, right? Even if you're going to transfer hammer into it, keeps the flame. So then you can already start working on that as a project on the side. And because it's a higher level item, also with flame advantage, it'll be on average bigger bang for your buck to use that flames on that than to try to get like from 52 to 55 on a pink holy cup, right?
So wait, so how do I pre-flame Absolab?
Well, if you make the pieces, right? If you transfer the coins, you know about the Scrapyard and Dark World Tree weeklies and all of that?
Yeah, I started doing them.
Yeah, that's
last week.
That's the natural response, the tone that you have right there. Everyone hates them. So you combine those pieces from the region with the drops of the boss, Lotus and Damien, right? Once you get to killing those, and then that gives you the coins for the coin shop in that area, and then you can buy the pieces from the shop. So typically, you want to buy the weapon and the shoulder from the Damien shop in the Dark World Tree. So from those dailies and weeklies, from those weeklies and boss drops. And then you buy the shoe and the glove and the cape from the Lotus shop with those coins. So then you have like, you want a total of 6 coins from Lotus and 7 coins from Damien to kind of balance it out. You can buy the weapon from both, but you typically don't want to balance like 2 coins from one shop and 11 from the other one. That's kind of lopsided. So like 7 and 6 is typically how we distribute that. And then if you can make a piece, you can, and basically you don't really have anything else to flame. You're kind of just like throwing on something as a Hail Mary, or you're kind of like, you know, they're tending to expire. You can already pre-make an Abso piece and just start flaming it, because, you know, every flame potentially is like a really good one. So, you know, sometimes it's better to let the flame expire, right? You don't, if you have pretty good flame scores, you don't want to just like throw it on because you don't want to lose the 8 million value of a flame, but then ruin like 200 million value of your flame on your weapon, right? Like on your item. That would be a bad trade, right? So sometimes it's the best move to let a flame expire, but if you can avoid that, try to avoid that, basically.
Gotcha. I should basically always have a secondary pink up though, right?
Yeah, that's always the easy out, to be like, well, you know, what if I hit like 120 flame score on one of these, then boom, you know? But then if you do hit that, well, now what else are you going to flame, right? Then you need to back up again. So so some items will just lend themselves better to be flamed into the future. That's a really nice glove flame, by the way. That's going to make sure that you can just keep this all the way through to Absolab. 45 and 5 is very solid. Any Xenon would be very happy with this as well, since you've got like 59 other stat on that on top of that. It's like 100 and was it like 104 with 5 all? That would be very, very solid that early on for Xenon as well. For Necro, that's fantastic. Yeah. I've done a lot of hill on a lot of bosses. I've seen better than this, of course, but that this is by far like, compared to anything else you can get in this stage, you know, what other people will have is like Pencilier with like, what, like 24 strength on it or something? I mean, this is just leagues above that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know that it was good for a long time. I just equipped it because it gave me a lot of range.
Yeah, well, yeah, you look at the range, and range is a decent indicator in the beginning, but the further you go, the more you get to see, like, you know, what is considered pretty good and what is considered like insanely good compared to a lot of the other stuff. Okay, so Star Forcing and Flames in general all make sense to you?
Yeah, Flames make a lot of sense to me.
Okay. So I guess the last main thing to get into is potentials, right?
Yeah.
Well, you pictured them here first, WSE. Again, this is where we prioritize. So you, this is the first items you get to unique before everything else. The first things you get to legendary before everything else. So for the emblem, it's pretty straightforward because you just get one emblem. You get the level 100 emblem all the way up until killing Seren. That's a little bit away from now for you. Up until there, emblem is one of the main sources, if not the main source of your damage. Plus, and that's the other way that you really want to evaluate whether you invest into an item or not, is how long are you going to keep it together with how much is it, how big of a bang for your buck is it, right? Emblem stays with you forever, so that's an easy no-brainer. Like, that's the priority. The other side is, of course, the opportunity cost of not pulling an errand, right? Like, are you going to get it to legendary? Cool. Do you have the money to realistically re-roll it into something that's as good or better in legendary? No, then don't do it yet, right? Hold on to your money. Wait for an event, or wait until it makes more sense in your account's progress. The weapon is very simple at this point. Until you get a real Absolab weapon and you have a decent amount of money to at least get that to legendary, this one is going to be a hold. And this one is going to be very similar to the CRA gear in the way that we don't want to pre-invest too much into an Abzo until we absolutely have to. But with the added bonus of this one, never expires. So to a certain extent, like, the longer you wait, the better. Because if you get to the point where you can actually do enough damage with everything, and you're like, I can make the real Abzo, but I can actually kill everything around my level, and I'm going towards Lucid, and I'm liking the character, and I can go towards Will, and we can start doing like hard bosses, and I can maybe buy the arcane weapon. Maybe this one gets you all the way to arcane, and you don't even have to get a Fafnir ever, an Absolab ever, and you can go straight into a real arcane. That's possible. But it'll depend on how quickly you progress, whether the other upgrades get a little bit lucky, and you can cut some corners, and whether you like the character enough to keep going. The secondary, the best in slot would be the Princess No one. So for some characters, especially if you're going to main, you're basically going to keep your regular secondary probably just up to epic, like a 6% attack, 6% magic attack, something like that. Maybe with the second line that does something. If you can score in an IED as well on epic, that's amazing. But either you hold that until you can kill Princess No, get that secondary, and then hard commit to that, or again, like people who have a bunch of money, are pre-funded, will basically get their secondary always to at least a unique, but probably to legendary, just to knock out like a line of IED and a line of attack, something like that, or maybe a line of boss. Just any combination, 2 lines of any of those 3. Just as, just to fast progress and be able to destroy all the bosses in their path. And as long as you have 2 useful lines on legendary, these things will take you like very, very far. Basically until you have enough money to get everything else to legendary, and then you kind of like circle back and are like, okay, how can we optimize these based on how much does my kit give me, how much are my Legion and my Links giving me, where do I move my hyper stats, right? Where do I have my Legion pieces, where can I move those flexible pieces? How many options do I have there? Oh, I have a fuck ton of options? Cool. That means I can just freely roll on the emblem and the secondary and the weapon. And then I can settle for more stuff on those. I can have more outs on average, spend way less money, and then move all the more more flexible pieces that I just mentioned, right? We can move those around to fit the WSE to make sure that we can make all of the money that we invested work. So between your... and then the one extra puzzle piece that I didn't mention will be familiars, hopefully, by that time. But for this account, that probably won't come into play. Like, the best thing you're going to be able to get from your familiars is like 1 or 2 15% IEDs, and that's probably it.
Yeah, I have 15% already.
That's already good. Together with the 15% ID from the Frozen Path is like, that's solid for now. But if you can, I mean, at this point, I would say like when it comes to investment, the weapon is locked. The emblem is like doing its part already. It's got like 9% attack, and the other 2 lines are also giving something. So if you upgrade anything here, it would be, I think, the Frozen Path, because Princess No is not going to be super important. You're not going to get the mileage out of that. You're probably not going to play the character long enough for that to make any kind of difference. So I'd at least get that one to unique or maybe to legendary. But then that would depend on what events are coming. Do you need to, invest into other stuff? And do you have the money to throw into legendary potential and to lock into there at this current time? Where I would say the CRA doesn't really require anything. Absolab is still far away. You can slowly work on the accessories with like re-rolling with occult cubes if you get E-pods or something like that. But there's nothing else, I think, in your account that really needs a lot of specific attention. Not anything past epic or something. So these are all rather small expenses, right? Okay. So I think you can pretty freely just start investing into the secondary for the purpose of what is the bang for your buck, what is the opportunity cost versus the other equips that could potentially gain a gear, and how long are you hold on to this. I think in all of those categories, this one wins out by far. So I think you can go pretty hard on a secondary without really needing to second guess. So I would... If you roll something really good and unique, like let's say you roll like 9% attack and 15 IED, at least that, right? If you roll that on unique, I would just keep it unique. But otherwise, I would just go to legendary, look for 2 useful lines, any combination of attack, boss damage, and IED. Just be mindful if you roll boss damage and IED. That's really good for bossing. It does absolutely nothing for you when you're mobbing. So that will mean that for your mobbing, you're going to be a little bit more dependent on your nodes, your arcane symbols, and on all of your other pieces on your equips getting at least 6% strength to kind of compensate for the loss. But for bossing, it's going to be massive.
Okay. And you said that I should just upgrade my Frozen right now instead of waiting for Princess No, because
I don't know how close you are. Yeah, if you're pretty close to the Princess No, you can also just hold, because, like, you know, replacing an epic, the earlier in the game, the worse that'll feel, but in the long term, just switching from an epic to another equip that's stronger and sending that to legendary, that's the play. But I don't know if you've already done Princess No, if you're planning to do it with your cousin. If you are, and you think you can get the pieces in like 1 to 2 weeks, then you can also just hold off a little bit.
Yeah, we cleared for the first time on Saturday as well. So okay. I have 3 out of 15 emblems, I think.
3, yeah. So if you get 3 a week, you know, then it might be that you need to wait 4 more weeks, right? So that's like a month away. Yeah. That could hinder your progress a little bit, but if you feel like it doesn't, then you can also just wait for that.
Okay. Gotcha. I think I'll probably wait just because.
Yep. If you'll wait, I'll probably still occult cube this one and just hit like a 6% attack instead of the IED.
Yeah.
Because that'll just help you scale better for mobbing and for bossing at this point. But just a cold for like 6% attack and then just sit on that and then wait for the Princess No. That'll be fine.
Okay.
And then we get to the accessories, right? Which are, well, you have a few more armors, but like the shoe and the glove is fine. I would just like, you know, if there's some kind of event, I would just take them up to like 11 stars or something. I like 11, you know, 12 is kind of yikes because it just keeps failing, and 10 is kind of cheap. So I usually just go for 11, the 1 extra star. But you could do that during the 30% off, or you can do that earlier if you want to. And at least give them potential and either roll 3% strength on it, you know, start there, or get into epic if they do. Go to epic, give them the 6% strength, and then just kind of sit on that. The cape, you want to, you know, once you get past CRA, one of the next stops will be Hard Magnus. As an arc, you have a great kit because you have the knockdown resistance, right, in Spectre form, so you don't get slashed away by the blue thing at all, and you have 2 iframes, which are very useful in the boss fight, plus the jump dash that allows you to like dash, teleport basically through the balls as well in certain situations. So you have a lot of value in your kit to be able to H-mag pretty quickly. I don't know what class your cousin is playing.
Kane.
A Kane? Okay. They do have knockdown resistance as well. They've got big burst. They're basically just very similar in iframes. They've also got like one that they can hold down and move around with a little bit on a shorter cooldown, and then one really big one on a long cooldown.
Okay.
So I think I think you guys face similar challenges. I would say that Kane is basically like an archer arc, and vice versa. Like arc is like a a pirate Kane almost. And you've got that dark red and black broody edgy stuff going on as well, right? An archer, yeah, nice. But yeah, so I wouldn't invest too much into cape whatsoever, right? It's a good piece for now. It gives a solid amount of attack and stat. But once you get the Tyrant cape, that's going to be the one that you invest a bit more into. Also has flame advantage, so that'll be your next target for flames as well if you run out of something. So that's nice, and it's level 150 piece as well, so good flames on there. The potential, yeah, you can get it up to epic, maybe even up to unique, but that kind of depends on where everything else is at that point. Don't Star Force that one, way too expensive, because it's a superior equip, right? Like you see with like the Nova. It works different for Star Forcing. You can transfer hammer from it, you can transfer hammer into it. Whenever there's a Star Force sale, doesn't work on these pieces either. They can start booming past 5. They get way more stat and way more attack past 5 from Star Force, but it's also way more expensive, and it starts with a 50-50 right off the gate on success and fail. So there is value there, but again, yeah, maybe for someone who's like brute forcing and you just want to completely skip Abzo, for example, and a new character, you just make like a 7 or 8 star Tyrant cape, and then, you know, you just brute force your whole way through Arcane and you make Arcanes as fast as possible. But those people tend to get carries as well, so they might not even have to do that. You know, there's ways to go about that, but you typically just don't Star Force them. The belt, you know, that's a really good piece because it's 140, so it can transfer hammer into
Superior?
Yep, into the Superior belt. Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So the epic potential will go through, the Star Force -1. The flame will or will not go through?
No.
No, exactly. And the target item is also not a flame advantage, so nothing to worry about there. That's, you aim low on those. But that means that this piece can freely Starforce even all the way up to 21. Because eventually, that'll get maintained, right? The potential going past, that's questionable because it'll drop down. How much are you going to even aim for in unique? Probably only 9 or 12 anyway. So you can prevent the costs of the rerolling and of the tearing up by just sitting on 9% strength on the belt. That'll be perfectly fine. But when it comes to star forcing, it's great. You can easily get backup. So if you boom, you can trace it back. So there's no value lost there. So that's a really good future piece. And basically, once you start star forcing past 17, which you probably won't do on this character, but in the future maybe for other characters, is, you know, first priority is CRA because you get a lot of backups and you can replace the trace, right? So you don't have to transfer, you don't lose the extra star. So that's going to be your priority on star forcing. But right after that is going to be the belt because the superior, very hard to replace, right? We don't want to risk booming that. But the golden clover belt, very easy to get. So very easy to get a lot of backups and to be able to safely get up to a high star force amount and then transfer hammer over and then work on the superior. So it's going to be right up there. It's not going to be, you know, number one, but right after CRA, it's pretty close to being there.
Okay, gotcha. So CRA to 16 first, and then belt to 16.
Pretty much,
if I can, on the sunny Sunday.
Yeah, if you could on a sunny Sunday, yeah. And it'll always depend on backups, right? If you have the backups, and
gotcha.
Yeah, it might be that it's still too early for CRA. You can still hold on for longer, but if you're only doing the Star Force part and you're still waiting on the potential, still waiting on the flames and everything, then you know there's not too much money wrapped up in those pieces just yet. So that'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, batch
I also only have 1.4 bill, so and also I don't have a heart yet, so I'm not sure if I should buy that 2 bill one.
Yeah, so I would say if you are like 100% sure that you're gonna park this character, and you're not pushing that far, I probably wouldn't get the heart here, but focus a little bit more on when you're working on Legion, which characters you are thinking of having as a main, and then maybe buying the heart on that one near the end of the event. So you will have like 2 more weeks to kind of figure that out. If you can't figure it out at all, I would probably still buy it on the Arc because I think it'll grow on you, and you'll see the value that you get out of bigger matrix and being stronger. And then, you know, you can always go back to it and it'll never lose its value. But it might have more value on a character that you're planning to push past the point.
Okay. I actually, maybe I misspoke, but I want my Arc to be my main because and I only meant parking as in like I only do dailies on them for now because you know, my symbols were lagging behind at that point and I couldn't train at all. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you're planning on pushing it long term past, then you definitely want to look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to kill like Lucid and stuff. I get my arcane here for sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I thought you wanted to more like kind of see if there's something else out there that you would want to prioritize, but you mean more like as a side thing.
Yeah.
If this one is being too much. Right. Okay. Well, now we have to change the entire progression. No, I'm just kidding. Well, a little bit, right? Because in some of the places where I'd say like, okay, this is like enough, you don't have to push further. That doesn't necessarily mean that you want to stop right there. But it does mean that if you push further, you're already like working into future proofing rather than what is absolutely necessary for the stage that you're in, I guess. To give it that extra context. But you know, you're moving into Abso, all that stuff that still stays the same. What up, Crispy? Yeah, when it comes to the other accessories, you can probably work a little bit on the flames here and there, although Power Crystal is great, the leather accessory I would say is good enough. The earring is great too, right? Those all have flame advantage, but those all have decent flames already, so no need to work on the flames there. Yeah, just try to get that epic, try to get that 6% on all of those pieces. And you know, once the WSE is done, once you get that secondary done, basically, then you can choose, like, do I want to push the emblem into legendary, or is the legendary good enough? Can I kill everything around my level? Am I okay? And then you can start working on the accessories, and you just make the whole set. Basically, you jump from epic all the way into legendary, straight into meso obtain and into drop rate. 5 lines of meso obtain, 4 lines of drop rate to make sure bag always drops, you get more nodes, and to make sure that all of the bags that drop have optimal amount of meso in them.
Yeah, so you would prioritize item drop rate over meso drop rate?
I'll get
or
both.
You just take
I'll
whatever
just get
comes
either
first?
one.
Okay.
Whatever comes first, move on to the next. And then if you have more than 5 of meso or more than 4 of drop, look at the pieces that have the line that you have too many of that doesn't also have a line of stat and reroll those first. So that you hopefully end up with 5 meso, 4 drop, and all of them having like at least one line of 6% all stat or 9% strength, because that does add up over all the pieces. And that also means that compared to having 6 or 9% on epic, you're not losing any damage, you're only just objectively gaining across the board. And then your kill speed stays the same, right? You get to just objectively, or and a net gain in your income without a net loss at all in your kill speed. And then you keep working on the nodes, keep working on the arcane symbols. And if you do need the extra damage, then you will have the ability to move into maybe re-rolling your secondary for more flat attack, maybe re-rolling your emblem into legendary and into more attack, and then that'll make the baseline damage go up high enough to make sure that you always keep killing regularly until your spell bullets start killing, and then you just start popping off like crazy.
Yeah. Okay. So also, like, I have some black flames from like the subscriber rewards. Would you use that on the weapon probably? See if I get something better.
How long do you have them for?
About 2 weeks or 1 week or something, I think.
Have you already picked them up? Like, you have them in your inventory?
Yeah, I picked them up already. 29th actually, so I have 5 days.
5 days. Yeah, probably the weapon then, because that has the most stay value and the most still potential for gain, because you can get like boss damage lines, percentage damage lines, maybe bigger attack. I'd probably use them on that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because the cup and the other stuff, you can just use regular red flames you get from bosses. That'll be perfectly fine for the value.
Okay.
All right.
Seems good.
Yeah, anything else that comes to mind? Anything about backups or items you have or general content?
I think that's it. I mean, I think we're going over time for your hard bosses, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we want to start doing those soon, yeah.
All right. I guess that's it for me then. Thank you so much for your help.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, I guess we didn't talk about interoperability real quick, but if you do, honestly, you don't rely on the attack speed as the arc. So if you can get any kind of meso obtain there or item drop rate, that's really good too, because that just, you know, propels your progress even more. Gotcha.
Should I, like, if I do get something good, should I like not get it on my accessories then at that point, or?
No. It goes over. It goes over. So
okay. It goes over.
The restrictions for your accessories is up to 5 lines of meso obtain and up to 10 lines of drop rate at any given time. More than that doesn't count. But your interoperability has its own, like, always stacks with with those things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna wait for the Sunny Sunday.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sunny Sunday.
I just got it to legendary.
Yep. No, that's fine.
Okay.
All right. Well, best of luck.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I'll see you around.
Bye.
Okay, bye. All right. Clean. I got the timestamps as well, so check those out if you need to. And I will do bosses in a little bit. But before I go, if you like this video, I'm very happy. Hopefully, you're not done with your totem yet, so good luck on the last 20 minutes. But thanks for watching and for chilling and hanging out. If you want one of these sessions, you can check the description of the video on how you can request one of these, or you can leave a comment saying that you would like to win, and at the end of the month, I draw 2 winners from all of these session videos that I have on YouTube, and you will get a chance to win a free one. 2 winners will be drawn at the end of each month, so if you want to, put your name in the jar, as they say. Other than that, if you need any of the resources, check out my Twitch channel, ! And then whatever you're looking for, or you can use ! Info, and then you can get the whole list of all of the information that you can request in the stream, and a bunch of them also have direct links in that file, so you'll be able to just click through right through there. I stream every day live on Twitch, so if you are interested or you just want to hang out or you have some questions, drop on by twitch.tv/Scardor. I'll see you there, and otherwise I'll see you in the next video.